All right. Oh, I see everyone now. Great. Well, let's get started. First, let me thank you all for attending. I know it's in the middle of the day and you guys are pretty busy, so I really appreciate you taking this time so that we can talk about how to prevent injuries and improve performances with gait analysis together. And instead of pretending that I will give you all the answers, I would like to use this webinar so that we can explore science and what is being done currently in the market to come up with the answers. So today we will look at different things. Um, First, yeah, let's talk about what is running really, and let's try to define it as simply and as easily as possible. Then we will discover the metrics that matters and that we see most in the market. I mean, the one that's being the most used in the market. We will explore the science behind gait analysis, and we will also challenge the science, something that's pretty important to me. We will see which solutions are available to us professionals, sports and health professionals in the market. And then we will talk a little bit more about Ochy. Why Ochy? I will show you a little bit more what it looks like and how it's being used in the real world. And if you guys are nice with me, we might come with an exclusive offer for you guys. But before we get into it, let me introduce myself, because in the end, who am I to conduct this kind of webinars as a head of sales, right? Well, I was not always a head of sales. I actually started my career as a strength and conditioning coach. I worked both in France and in the US with professional soccer team, basketball teams, baseball, football. I mean, I've seen a huge spectrum of different kind of athletes. And then in 2021, I found a passion for technologies because I was introduced to technologies as a strength and conditioning coach first. On top of being a coach, I was also myself an athlete, and I can proudly say that I'm a 2 times ACL injury world champ. I'm part of those guys who can say or pretend that they didn't have a professional career because of the ACL injury. And then I will talk a little bit more about it later, because we will see that sometimes when we try to fix things, it seems that it leads to injury more than it fixes anything. When I first encountered Ochy, I had that oh wow moment, not as a sales rep again, but as a strength and conditioning coach. When I saw it for the first time, it was made more for runners, but to me, as I seen it as a sports and health professional, I thought it would be way, way, way more relevant to use it in sports medicine. And also, we will see why later. So let's talk about running, because there's different definitions to it. And I'm sure every one of you guys have a different definition to it. But what I came up with a couple of years ago, when I was still practicing as a strength and conditioning coach, is that running is nothing but the body expressing himself through movement. We talk about technologies, and we will talk about technologies a lot today. I've used them a lot, and you probably did too. You probably used force plates. You've probably used laser and speed analysis, jump mat, whatever that is. But we quickly realized that there's things you can see in a static assessment environment, but there's things you can't see and that you can only see when your athlete is freely expressing himself while he runs, right? It's just like when we record one of our athletes running and we see him doing like his sport or in a match running and we see two different person. Well, it's normal because when he runs really and freely, his body is really expressing himself, and that's the moment we can see things we haven't seen before. And to see things, we need metrics. So let's talk about the five. I've selected the 5 most used metrics that we, with our experience as a sports medicine professional, but also in my experience with Ochy, we see that are the most used. First, we see the cadence, the good old cadence that says that if we increase the cadence by 5 to 10%, it will reduce knee force by 20. And we will see that this is being challenged as well. And there's always a counterexample. That's why I put a counterexample in every slide, is to show that even though science says something, running is not a universal truth, and it's really depending on who is running. So the counter example is that we see a lot of Kenyans run at 165 SPM, even though it seems to be below the good cadence form. But it does matter because before we improve performance, we want to prevent injury, because an injured athlete simply doesn't work, simply doesn't run or jump or anything. So before we improve performance, we want to prevent injury. Then we have the ground contact time that I've personally used a lot, right? We see, right, that elite runners have shorter contact time, but we also see some high performing ultra runner have longer contact time, right? And it's also because even though we look at the metrics, even though there is metrics, they are just numbers. And numbers are useful when we give it the usefulness. And it will depend of your goal. Are you trying to sprint? Are you trying to save energy because you're doing distance? Whatever that is, you will not use the metrics the same way. But it still matters because it's an energy efficiency indicator. The left and right asymmetry, it's being used, I mean, literally by everyone now. And we tend to say that an asymmetry above 2% is an increased risk of injury. Yeah, that's being challenged a lot. It's debatable, and we will debate on it later. And a counter example shows that stable asymmetries in experienced runners can be normal. We are human. We are not 50-50. No one is. But when we see a sudden change in asymmetry, that could be something concerning that we need to look at. The knee valgus, that's my favorite one. We know excessive valgus equals patellofemoral pain, right? But if we look at female runners, for example, we see that that's not the case for everyone. And I was like that too. Honestly, I probably have the flattest feet you've seen, right? I mean, my pronation is through the roof. So my knees tend to have a natural above average valgus. And I remember about 8 years ago when I wanted to level up my game, I started as an athlete to go see sports professionals. So I went to see a podologist to fix my flat feet. He realized that yes, it needed to be fixed, so he prescribed me soles. I put my soles on, I feel brand new. A week later, we go back after summer camp, first training, changing of direction, first ACL. A year later, I'm finally healed. I went through my rehabilitation. I go back with my soles. First training, and I'm not even lying. First training, changings of direction, second ACL, the other leg. And the point is, my knees were used to my valgus. It was trained to be stable and to develop force in my hyper and above average valgus. And the fact that we changed that drastically without a step-by-step process before I go back to a high intensity practice got me broken. So it matters because in context of strength and neuromuscular control, it is crucial, yes, but a knee valgus above 2% is not a problem, or above 10%, 10 degrees is not a problem for everyone. And then, of course, in running, we talk a lot about stride and foot strike position. Well, yeah, an overstride equals increased braking force, as they said, but we see high-performing marathoners, again, with mild overstride and still good load distribution. What matters most is your position relative to your center of gravity above absolute pattern. And that's what I love about running is that everything is debatable now in terms of science and in terms of what we considered the ultimate running form. Why the naked eye isn't enough? And we say that because today we use our phones a lot with videos that we put in slow motion to assess and evaluate the running form of our athletes or patients. The truth is, the naked eyes is not enough because at a speed of 180 steps per minute, you cannot analyze precisely. Also, the fact that we have to put it in slow-mo to counter that movement speed so that our eyes can see more, it's very time consuming. And most of the time, we do not have that time. And sometimes asymmetries are too subtle. We cannot see it with our eyes. Like if there's an asymmetry of like 5% in pronations between left and right, it's impossible. That's why we have some tools available for us. But before we get to the tools, let's see what's scientifically validated. And again, guys, um, don't shoot the messenger. I'm going to show a couple scientific studies, but I also show like other studies that come to challenge those ideas, right? My point is to challenge everything that's being said so that we can come up with the most objective answers. So in terms of temporal spatial metrics, we talked about the cadence, and they say that the optimal cadence is 170 to 180 for most runners. Again, but other studies in 2024 show that we found only a weak connections between running cadence and running economy, which means that the 180 steps per minute rule, it's not universal, right? Elite runners, Eliud Kipchoge, I've never know how to say his name, averages 190 SPM during marathon. Is well above traditional recommendation, and he's still an elite marathoner. But what we do know is that each 1 step per minute increase reduces bone stress injury by 5%. So in this case, a higher can be better for injury prevention. We also say that the more cadence, the less strength of impact we have. That's also debatable. We need to think of it like RPM. It's like your car. It has an optimal range for efficiency, but it varies depending on the car. It also varies depending on the person and the situation. Contact time. Ultimate contact time for recreational runners, 200 to 250 milliseconds. Well, it's quite old studies. If we go more in our time in 2024, we found that longer ground contact time is actually related to superior running economy in highly trained distance runners. But what this means in plain English is that the old advice of shorter contact time equals better, it's not always true, because your body will automatically naturally optimize the contact time to minimize energy cost. But the key insight is like, when you see here, like elite heel strikers will average higher contact time than a 4-foot striker, and they can both compete against each other and still be successful. Overall, in terms of contact time, we see that if we have a contact time that is too short, we might lose power, but if it's too long, we might waste energy. We look at contact time a lot in sprints, for example, but when we increase the contact time, sometimes we see a decrease in power, which leads to a longer time in terms of performances. So it's not always black or white. Stride length. Okay, what we know now is that your body naturally selects the right stride length, right? What we see is that sub 3 hours marathoners average about 130 centimeters stride length versus sub 100 centimeters for 4+ hours finishers. But we see that it also depends on the size of your leg. This makes sense. The bottom line, don't force a longer or shorter stride. Focus on strength and power to let your natural stride develop. I was myself when I learned that we called a puller. I use my posterior chain a lot. I'm really hamstring and glute dominant. So when I run, no matter the distance, I will have a huge stride length and I will pull back instead of pushing. I was a good sprinter, but when it comes to distance, I was horrible. So yeah, when my goal was distance, I had to shorten my stride length and increase my cadence to save more energy. But this was not the right thing to do when I wanted to do a 100 meters sprint. So again, it's good or bad doesn't exist in running, and the metric cannot tell you good or bad. We can only say what's the goal and who are you using those metrics for. Another practical finding, but it's more for the fun side of things. We know that in running, music with a beat that's about 10% above your cadence can help recreational runners, as we say, increase your step frequency by 8.5%, and the improvement stuck even after stopping the music. I find it quite fun. But just as a simple takeaway, generally speaking, your body knows best. As sports and health professional, we can gently guide improvement, and I highlight the word gently because with me it was not gentle and it led to ACL injury. But we can gently guide improvement through training without forcing dramatic changes. Because again, injury prevention first, performance then. Then when we go to the biomechanical patterns, go back to our knee valgus. That's being said, above 10 degrees, it's an established ACL risk factor. True. And it even became the gold standard. But we still consider if we still question if we need to consider the knee valgus as a sole risk factor for ACL injury. Because in 2023, Nilstad found that there is no association between frontal plane knee motion and future ACL injury risk in elite female athletes, because they tend to have the most knee valgus, higher knee valgus than men. But what it means in plain English is that the knees caving in is not equals bad. It's not as simple as we thought. It's not black or white again. It's like saying all left-handed people are clumsy. Well, some knee valgus might be normal for certain people, especially if they can control it well. And that's very important, because one thing that I realized as a strength and conditioning coach when I had soccer players, football players, baseball, what I saw is that they constantly change direction. They constantly jump unilaterally. We almost never jump both feet at the same time. We use one leg. And even though this is the case, when they come to the gym, we always use exercises that keep the knees aligned with the toes. We almost always do bilateral exercises. So why is there such a difference between how we work in the gym and how we play? Because when we reinforce certain things in the gym and we get your body used to control and develop force only aligned with your toes, for example, for the knees and the squat, when you go on the field and you change direction, your body is just not trained for it. So by doing that and by exercising this way, you risk more injury than looking at all those metrics combined. So let's first consider that a knee valgus is not necessarily bad if your body is used and trained with it. Pelvic drop. That's a big one. Again, pelvic drop, we say that a pelvic drop above 5 degrees is correlated with ITB syndrome. It's still a problem. We see a pelvic drop being a problem, but today we know how to fix it. We know that hip adductor strength training significantly reduces pelvic drop and knee valgus. And what it means is that it's still linked to hip weakness and ITB syndrome, but we can prevent that by doing hip strengthening exercise. And actually it shows that doing adductor strength training will improve hip abductor strength and hip strengthening in general by 34 to 51%, which is huge. But we also see, and that's an important topic, that the shoes, it's an important topic in running specifically, that the shoe choice will affect your pelvic drop. And we tend to see that flat shoes reduce it compared to traditional running shoes with a huge sole like we all see nowadays. The loading rate now, better stress fracture predictor than peak impact. Back in the days, I used to look at peak impact as well to look at stress and, like overloading, but it tends to not be as true as looking at loading rate. Because in the end, it's not how hard you hit the ground, it's how fast the force builds up. So it's like the speed at which we apply pressure. It's like the difference between slowly pressing versus quickly slamming your hand on the table or your hand on your other hand. But a recent study shows that bone stress injuries occur when the adaptive ability of bone is unbalanced, not just from high forces. Again, metrics do matter, but we need to be very careful on why we use it, how we use it, with who we use it, and what's the overall goal. Now that we talked about what's validated, let's talk about what is still being debated. And there's a lot of them. And thankfully, for the sake of this webinar and so that it doesn't last the whole afternoon, I selected a few for you guys. The foot strike patterns. We talk a lot about it because apparently changing to a mid or forefoot strike will not improve running economy, does not eliminate impact, and does not reduce risk injury versus what we tend to think, right? A 2024 research has found that both rear-foot and forefoot striker are equally capable of stabilizing leg length and orientation during landing. We also see that up to 89% of runners, which is, again, huge, naturally use rear foot striking. But there's still no evidence that changing this is beneficial. When I used to look at foot strike patterns in my athletes, my goal was not to change that. My goal was to improve their performance in doing so with their current foot strike pattern. So the goal is not always to change things, but maybe we can improve with what we have. In real world analogy, it's like asking whether you should write with left or right hand, and most people will naturally choose what works best for their bodies. So let your athletes naturally decide. The optimal running form, also being debated, individual versus universal. We tend to, as humans, to want to put everything in cases, so we can't blame ourselves to try to find what's optimal, right? But in running specifically, everything is so individual. It depends on really who you have in front of you. And we found that biomechanical predictors of performance are highly individual and they don't create universal patterns. So what it means is that, yes, there's no universal perfect running form. We can improve each running form. We can prevent injury looking at each running form, but there's never black or white or good or bad, right? A technique that works for an Olympic runner may actually hurt your performance if you have a different body proportions. And we will see body proportions are very important in running form. But things are changing. The current trend is going towards hyper individualization. It's usually based on anthropometry, running history, and personal biomechanics overall. And that became the new gold standard. It's just like closing side, running technique should be tailored to fit your unique body, not copied from someone else. Something that's important also, the intervention threshold. When, as sports and health professional, should we act? And there's a lot of things that say, oh, depending on how much asymmetry we have, we need an intervention. We need to change things. Well, this thing as of today, it lacks evidence-based support. Nothing says that a certain amount of asymmetry leads to injury. Okay. The perfect symmetry is not normal or necessary. We all have our normal asymmetry patterns, but what we need to see is if there is a sudden change. It's just like ground contact time. I used it a lot with my athletes, and also I was using for the same reason grip strength and jump height to see if there was an accumulation of fatigue. Because what we see when we go out of the country for 2 to 3 weeks competition where players will play every day and practice also in the morning, we will see that they accumulate fatigue. It's normal. And to make sure they don't accumulate too much so that they get injured, we will prevent that with some metrics such as ground contact time, such as asymmetries. Grip strength is a good one too. Jump height is also a good one. Bottom line, the latest research shows that we should stop chasing universal perfect. Okay, it doesn't work. Universal perfect numbers does not exist, but instead we should focus on understanding and optimizing each runner's unique movement signature. The key is to monitor change. It's not hitting arbitrary threshold. And to monitor change, we do need tools and data. One thing that's not being debated anymore, guys, and I mean, it's been years, we know for a fact that what we can't measure, we cannot improve. So again, data. Data is key. Now, what will differentiate a professional from another is his usage of data and his interpretation of data based on his circumstances. I put the resources that I've used. Again, I don't pretend to know anything. I just look at what the science says. So there's quite a few resources that I've used for this. I can send it to you if you want some reading. But let's continue. What's available now that we know how important data is to support us in taking care of our athletes and patients, let's see what's really available for us to provide those gait analysis. Well, we have the good old lab-based solutions, the gold standard. Usually it's the 3D motion capture systems. It's good because it has the maximum precisions, right? It's complete data in kinematics and kinetics, and it's established in scientific validation. So you know you can't go wrong with it. But not everybody can afford that. You need about 50 to 200K to afford it, depending on which machine and tool you need. But you also need a dedicated space. You also need a trained staff, and you also need time in order to interpret the data, gather it in one place, and everything. So it's good, but it's not for everyone. Then we have the wearable sensors, IMU, foot pods. It's been growing in the market this past 10 years. There's a lot of solutions available. I myself worked previously with a company called Kinvent, which is a leader in wearables and sensors with force plates, dynamometers. It's great. It's more accurate than the runner's watch. It's portable. It's affordable, but usually it's pretty complex in installation and calibration. Just try to use the Bluetooth one where in a space where you have other coaches trying to connect another device to their phone or tablet with the Bluetooth, and you will see your device is connected to his phone and his device is connected to your phone, and it becomes a mess. But also, the quantitative data usually don't have a visual context. Most of them try to go in the biofeedback and add biofeedback to things, but we also see that real-time biofeedback can give us a BS, can change the way the athletes behave because it tries to be perfect, obviously. So sometimes it's better not to have the biofeedback. Then we have the video analysis. It's pretty traditional. I mean, it's good because there's no equipment cost. We all have a phone, I'm hoping. It gives you a complete visual context so you can really see and think for yourself. And it's flexible, but it's highly subjective. Right? It just depends on what you see and what you say, and nothing will back it up for you. Usually the analysis time is about 15 minutes. The video can be short, but then the analysis and the slow motion can take time. The precision is limited. And again, it's not for everyone. You need expertise. So the more experience you have, usually, the better and the more efficient you will be using video analysis. And with all that, why did we create Ochy? We have lab-based stuff, we have wearables, we have videos. So why Ochy even matter? And to tell you a little bit of the story of Ochy, it actually started with a problem. My friend Claudio liked to say it all started with a personal story. Well, it started with the CEO's personal story. Caldon, he's actually not in the picture in here. I should have put him. I'm sorry about that. But Caldon was a elite runner. He was in Berkeley University in the US, and as an athlete, he got injured. And it's only when he got invited to a lab in order to conduct assessment and help him recover from his injury that he realized that if he could have access to everything that's in this lab on a daily basis, he would probably never had to go to this lab to recover from an injury. So he started thinking, how can I make it affordable for everyone, accessible for everyone, and how do I put it in a way that it's not time consuming, that it's reliable, and again, it's price efficient. So I will show you a little bit more about Ochy. I will show you the app so that you can see how he made it happen. Guys, I'm going back to the Teams right now. Is everything still all right with the sound, the screen, anything? Are we good? If I don't see anything, I will assume that it's a yes. For the question and answer, we will do it at the end. No worries. I will now share my screen with you guys, and here we go. So this is Ochy. I mean, this is the web app because everything can be done with your phone. You take a video from 1 to 10 seconds, 10-second maximum. You upload it, and Ochy will process this for you. Now, there's two types of analysis that we do. There's a back view and a side view. Different view, different metrics. For example, the back view here, when we take a video, we will have the video here. Again, if you want to use your eyes, go for it. We support you. You can see everything here. We put some numbers and some lines so that we can help you. We can clearly see the pronation, the pelvic drop here. But as we saw, it's not enough. So we gave you a simple report here with every joint, every segment that we see. For example, here, the pelvis, I see something red. And when I click on it, not in the pelvic, in the knee, sorry, when I click on it, I can see why Ochy is telling me that it's red, right? I can compare to what is supposed to be good and aligned. And again, Ochy is just here to give you an objective view of what's going on. It's not here to tell you good, bad, do something, do or don't do anything. So we have this for the knees, we will have this for the pronation. And every time we give you something, we give you a quick recap of what we see here. We tell you the possible consequences of what's happening here. And we suggest a way to correct it. And on top of that, we suggest some exercises that will help your athletes get better. Athletes or patients, right? Get better. Everything that we talked about and that we show in the reports is explained in blog article. We don't like to pretend things, but we like to explain what we show you. And this report can be 2 clicks where we can choose which metrics we want to see, and we can even add some notes and comments. Generate the PDF, download it, and then you can send it either to your athletes, to your patient, but also with the other sports and health professional you work with. I know one thing very important between physiotherapist, coach, and strength and conditioning was communication. That's a huge aspect of this of things. So we help you guys improve communications. For the side view now, again, different view, different metrics. We still have our video that we can see. We can still pause and look in details in slow motion if we want to see foot strike, if we want to see, I mean, how the athletes will use his arms and everything. And talking about the arms, some questions that I got sometimes is, why do you guys even talk about arms? Like, why does it matter? Well, it depends. I know that when I used to train track and field athletes, the sprinters had to have a good technique, and it comes with how they use their arms. So that matters a lot. Now, if you're distance runners, it still matters, but maybe not as much. So feel free to use it as you wish, but it's still here available for you. And then some metrics here will be running speed, time of flight, ground contact time, stride length. We've seen them in the scientific studies, the step frequency, aka the cadence, and the step length. Then we give you an analysis that is like the one we saw before when we look at each segment, for example, here, the torso. And again, we give you some advice on it. I mean, being straight doesn't hurt, but if you lean a little bit forward, you might improve your performance, you might reduce fatigue, etc. So we also give you the recap. We give you the possible consequences of things, a quick correction, and here you will also find a quick coach tips, right? And again, the exercises. Then a graphic. That one is important. More in injury prevention. I like to use it because sometimes when you do a static assessment, just like squats, you won't see much in terms of how he uses he uses each segment when he run. So it's good to see if we don't have too much asymmetry on the way he uses his flexion and extension patterns. And to gamify a little bit things, we give your athletes a running style. Each running style have its own animals. We explain to you here the 5 different running styles, and even though it seems simple and maybe not important, it seems to be the part that the athletes and the patient share the most together. So it's just to add a little bit of fun to it. So that was for the analysis part. You can find all your athletes in this section where you can click on each one and see if they have done an analysis. Here I have some. And the last but not least is the comparison. We can compare, of course, to track improvement to running. Now it's being a little bit slow. So if I want to compare to running here, I will click on this one. Oh, my computer is acting up right now. Up, compare, Perrine, Calden. It's 2 different people, but it's just show you for the sake of things. And then you can compare before and after. But that's for Ochy. That's what we do. That's what we bring to the table. We've tried our best to make everything easy to use, time efficient, right? In literally 1 minute, you have your video recorded and your report ready for you, and affordable. But I also say that we wanted things reliable because data only matter if it's reliable. So let's talk about it. How is Ochy grounded in science? First of all, we validated our algorithm. We have a database above 10,000 analysis correlated with gold standard system with an accuracy of 0.85 to 0.95 correlated with the 3D motion capture, right? And the reproducibility, which is very important, below 5% test and retest variability. English is hard today. Also, The continuous research integration is very important. Ochy is already 4 years old, but it's completely different from when it was 4 years ago. And it's completely different from how it was even yesterday, because our algorithm adapt based on new research. Okay. We also conduct studies with universities that partners with it. And last but not the least, we use data to enrich scientific foundation, but also your feedback. We are very, very open to feedback, and we encourage users to give us feedback so that we can improve. We are still a pretty family-sized team, so we can change things fast and improve fast. This is our strength. So how is Ochy used in real world? Because that's all that matter. Having an app is good, but how do we use it? How do you use those metrics? How do you interpret them? How do you use them to make your life better? Well, for physical therapists and in rehabilitation, it's used in three aspects. First, return to run protocol. That's actually being debated because we still question and challenge who should take care of the return to play phase. Is it the physiotherapist or is it the strength and conditioning coach? Whereas of now is the one who have the better equipment to do it. So the problem in this phase is that we still have subjective assessments, right? We still do feels good things and it's not reliable. So the goal of Ochy was to bring objective movement quality criteria for clearance. It's like you are good to go because the numbers say so, not because you tell me you feel good, right? So in typical use, we use it for baseline analysis pre-injury when it's possible. We use it for progressive loading monitoring during rehab, for clearance criteria, and for follow-ups, usually for 8 to 12 weeks post-return. But it's used, obviously, in injury prevention screening. So the challenge would be to identify at-risk patterns before the pain develops. But again, with our eyes, we can only go so far. So Ochy created a complete screening for movement dysfunctions. And typical results that we see is that 15 to 20% of healthy runners shows concerning patterns. Because the thing with runners is that injuries and pain come from accumulation, right? And sometimes it's subtle, but usually runners, they run a lot. So small plus small can quickly comes to something big. And when it comes, it's usually too late. And it's also used for treatment progress tracking. So the challenge here to quantify the improvement objectively and not just say, oh, I feel better than yesterday. So Ochy's solution was made to get a before and after intervention comparison, hence the comparison part. The key metrics that are being tracked is usually asymmetry, loading patterns, movement efficiency, and basically patient education. How does he see himself and know how to fix himself, basically. Fix in a big words, but so that's for physical therapy. Now, let's talk about the coaches and for performance optimization. Here, again, it's used in three components, in three different things. For team screenings, usually team screening is fun, but we have limited time and resources to do individual biomechanical assessments. Usually what we used to do, even when I was in the US and I thought, oh my God, US is that the top of what exists in terms of technologies and tools, we still used Excel sheets. I had my 30 athletes jumping on the jump mat or on the force plate, and I would manually write everything down. And and at the end of the screening, I will go back in my office to gather the data, to process it and interpret it. With Ochy, it's done right there. So the Ochy solution is that it's time efficient, right? You can implement it in precision screenings, in risk stratification, technique work prioritization, and progress tracking throughout the season. But it's also used in technique refinement. I was talking about the sprints where the technique is huge, Well, the challenge here is to identify subtle efficiency losses. And again, with your eyes, it's pretty hard. So, objective technique analysis brought by Ochy will help you, and you can use it for cadence optimization, overstride reduction, asymmetry correction, and energy efficiency improvement. And the last one, which is probably the most important as a strength and conditioning coach, is the load management. How do they accumulate fatigue, and how can we see if the movement quality deteriorates? Oh, that's a hard one again. Over time. So Ochy's solution helps monitoring fatigue through biomechanics. So we use it for baseline, fresh analysis, post-workout and post-race analysis, and to identify fatigue-related compensation, and training load adjustments based on movement quality. Oh, let's not get to that too fast. So overall, this is what Ochy brings to the table. Again, our goal was really to help sports and medicine professional access objective and reliable data with being time efficient, accessible in terms of cost. But overall, we also want to help you to motivate your athletes and to have them more, how you say it in English, to have them more implicated in their performance training and in their rehabilitation. We want them to be able to understand what's going on in the report. And so we want for you to make it easy for them to understand. And as I promised, guys, to thank you for attending and for giving me some of your precious time and attention, we have a gift for you. And the gift is pretty simple. For those who attended, we will get you a 15% discount on your yearly subscription, right? Now, what does a 50% discount means when you don't even know the price? That's why to get the price and to have you the right price, you need to know that it's based on how much you plan on using it. And I'm not asking you to have the answer now. I'm not asking you to tell me, oh, I'm going to use it this much. What I will want you to do is to schedule a quick video call with me so that we can assess it together. Okay. So to do so, I will give you my Calendly link. I will put it right now in the conversation so that we can discuss what you currently do, with which kind of athletes do you work, how can Ochy help you and see if it's a right fit for you, and how much you plan on using it. And based on that, I will come up for you with the right pricing to which we will add the 15% discount. So I'm dropping the link right now. That was not good. Let me, okay. How do I do this? Up, copy link, and here you go, guys. It says 30 minutes, but honestly, we will need less than that. I mean, it says 45 minutes on the image, 30 minutes on the link, but in truth, we will need more, like 15 minutes. Thank you, guys. This is my next. Thank you for joining us, and let's Ochy help you through AI in video anytime and anywhere. I will give you sometimes, guys, to gather your questions. We will take 5. We still have 9 minutes ahead of us, so feel free to ask if you can, because I've yeah, Claudio, you have talked in the conversation. So guys, feel free to ask any questions, and I will do my best to answer you. Claudio, just so you know, at the beginning of this, I've asked people to say something in the chat. Elias is writing, so it means, yeah, you guys can write in the chat. That's good. It's perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Elias. I appreciate it. Thank you. I actually don't know what not having questions means. Is like, was it clear enough so that it's good, or is it not good? Who knows? Does anyone have any question? Yeah, I see. Oh, okay, guys. Now you're writing. I have one absolutely clear and very interesting. Thank you, Elias. Thank you. I appreciate that. It's our first webinar, so it means a lot. If you have any feedback, feel free. We need to learn and improve as well. So Rahit had a question. Gautier is writing. Tony is writing. Oh, Gautier. Thank you. Thank you, Gautier. Guys, don't forget to use the link so that we can discuss everything further. Does the insoles do the solution or just strength exercises work? Excuse me, Rahit, I'm not sure I understand your question. Yeah, Tony, you would like to see a video of the app in use with a real time. Yeah, I can provide that. Click on the link on the Calendly. Let's schedule a call, and I will show it to you. Can be correct the pronation with custom insoles too. Well, yeah, your insoles will definitely change your pronation, which is what it did to me, and it broke my knees. So yeah, having soles can be important to fix, so to speak, the pronation. But just so you know, when you change these kind of patterns, you need to go step by step with your athletes before you can go back to a high intensity training or a game, because the body used to control itself and to produce force in the new patterns, if that makes sense. So yeah, thank you, Tony. Tony, I will wait for your Calendly invites so that I can show you the video and you will see how it's been used in real life, so to speak. Thank you, guys. I will still wait 6 minutes to see if anyone have a question, but I'm assuming it's been 3 minutes, so it's. I mean, if you do have a question, you would probably have already put it on the chat. I see Filippo, Yasin, Anik, you are still here. Anton, are you guys even here? Do you have any question? No, everything clear and book an appointment in Calendly. Thank you, Yasin. We will talk. We will talk. Ah, Anik. Goodbye, Anik. Hello, everyone. I believe everyone can raise their hand or unmute to ask a question directly if you prefer. Yes, that's true. You can ask. Yeah, you can use your mic to use it as well. That's true. Well, guys, I will guess that that's all for today. I want to thank you for joining. It means a lot. It was our first webinar, and yeah, I think it went good. We appreciate your feedback, and I will be waiting for you to book a quick call with me in Calendly so that we can discuss things further. Thank you, Claudio. Filippo is writing. Thank you, Rahit. I don't know if I pronounce your name good. I'm sorry. Rajit in French it would be, but thank you. Thank you for your feedback. Thank you, Filippo. Thanks to everyone. Have a good day, and I will see you soon.